Age, and they're going to tell a little bit about themselves. They're all going to also tell a little bit about what they look for, what skills, what are some of the things that they look for when they're interviewing people for a potential position, plus give you some food for thought to take back to tell your students so that when they start looking for a job, then they can remember these tips to hopefully get them fully employed. So I'm really excited, and I really appreciate them taking their time today coming and speaking to us. The first person we have is Stacy Bond, and she is with Santee Cooper. The next person we have is Farrah Gasquey. She's actually from Ori Telephone. We also have Patrick Sparks with Sparks Toyota. And our next guest just flew in from Florence. And this is Tybee Smalls with McLeod Health. I'm actually going to give the microphone over to them and let them tell a little bit about themselves and about what they do, and just talk to you for a few minutes.
Thank you. Well, good morning.
Good morning.
Good job, guys. Okay, I'm Stacy Bond, and I am an HR sourcing specialist with Santee Cooper. Am I a little bit too loud? No. Okay. So basically, my role is to try and find us some connections out in the community, and you guys are a great resource for us for bringing in student interns, co-op students, and kind of building our pipeline for talent. So that's a little bit about what I do, and Santee Cooper is the state electric and water utility. So a little bit about the company, and I'm excited to be here to talk to y'all today. I want to thank you for what you guys do.
Hi, I'm Farrah Gasquey, and I work with HTC. I am the corporate HR coordinator at HTC. I'm responsible for all the external employment opportunities, also internal employment opportunities, work directly with compensation and various other areas of human resources. Work very closely with the various colleges. I see Mr. Dennis here, work very closely with him throughout the past several years with our intern program. So I look forward to providing some tips and hopefully some helpful information to our students.
Good morning, I'm Patrick Sparks with Sparks Toyota. Proud to say that I'm a longtime resident, graduated North Myrtle Beach High School, then went on to Coastal Carolina University. I'm glad Mary Beth gave us the opportunity to come up today and kind of talk about some of these things, because they are concerns of ours as an employer. How to hire the right person for the right job. There are expenses associated with hiring people, and it's a growing concern. We want to make sure that we put the right person in the right place the first time, and a lot of that has to do with the type of student that you are sending to us, quite frankly. So I think it's a natural hand-in-hand sort of obligation that businesses and schools have together to make sure that we're producing the right type of person to come out and make an impact in our industry.
Good morning. My name is Tybee Smalls, and I am a recruiter at McLeod Hospital in Florence, South Carolina. I would think this group definitely knows McLeod, and in Florence we are the biggest campus of our 7 campuses around the PD region. We employ over 8,000 people at McLeod, and we pull from a lot of different places. One of the things that I'm blessed to be able to do is I coordinate a scholarship program at McLeod, and we offer almost $1 million in scholarship money to some of our employees, as well as other folks that we want to be employees. But I'm personally blessed because I actually teach an honors course through Florence District 1 at our hospital, and we invite students from West Florence, South Florence, and Wilson, and they come in to look at a lot of different things at our hospital. Soft skills is one of the things that I like to focus on, because interviewing skills, resume writing, how do you act in a professional environment, it's very important. So Ms. Roach, I want to thank you for inviting me to this group, because I know you guys are preparing the next generation of employees at McLeod, and I'm hoping that maybe we can actually come to grips on some things and make sure that everybody understands exactly what's what. You guys are doing an amazing job with the students already, and I definitely want to applaud you, and I think I understand how difficult it is to work with students a lot. But hopefully at the end of the day, if there are any questions or anything you want to discuss, that we all can definitely do a better job of answering some of those questions and providing what you need today.
Okay, if you guys don't mind spending some time and just talking to the teachers about what are the things that you look for? As Patrick was saying, putting the right person in the right position. So if you'll go ahead and address that,
Okay.
would be great.
So do we sit, do we stay, how formal are we?
Either way, you want to do.
What would you prefer? Does it matter? You go. All right, I heard a perfect mixture of everything. So I'll sit up. All right, sounds good. So what are we looking for? At our hospital, we are responsible for saving lives. That's the number one thing that we're there to do. I think everybody here understands how important it is for a team to work together. I'm sure we have all teachers. All teachers are here. Definitely, you guys are essential to the education process. I think you understand how each cog make sure that the system runs smoothly. You need cafeteria workers. You have to have janitors. You have to have teachers' aides. You need librarians. You need so many different people to make the team work. So with that being said, we have to have a diverse group of people, but we also have to have a professional group of people. Now, I make hires for 5 different departments at McLeod currently. And one of the things that we are very interested in is having compassionate employees that are dependable, that are consistent, that show up on time, that do exactly what they're supposed to do, when they're supposed to do it. As teachers, I'm sure you recognize certain characteristics in students very early on, and fortunately or unfortunately, those students become adults, and they will continue to do a lot of things that they're already doing in high school. But if you could stress how important it is that we have to be professional, how important it is that timeliness is very important. Resumes are another thing that I like to discuss as well, because as I look at applications daily, you have an option in McLeod's system to complete a resume and actually post that resume online, or you can key in your experience and the information that you want people to see. Well, I must admit, as a recruiter, it is much easier, it is much more efficient for us to look at resumes versus trying to read 2 pages of listed activities or listed experiences that a person is going to place online. So that's just one thing I like to focus on. Resumes are not essential, but gosh, they make it a whole lot easier for us to look at it. And it's so much clean, it actually lists the information much cleaner than just listing the jobs online. And please forgive me, Dr. T just threw me off. Hey, Dr. T, how you doing? I just recognized her and she smiled and it messed me up, Dr. T, so don't do that to me again, please. But a lot of characteristics I know you guys have an effect on when it comes to some of the things that the students are doing. A lot of things they're going to have to get from home. I know you're doing the best that you can do, but importance, dependableness, consistency are some things that we definitely take a look at McLeod.
If you're okay with it, I'm going to skip around a little bit because quite honestly, it's a really big topic and a lot of different places that you can go with the topic. Conversely, as an employer, look at it from the other side. The way we have hired in our onboarding process now has completely changed from the way it was 15, 20 years ago. 15, 20 years ago, you as college kids coming out looking for employment, it was ingrained in you that if you went in and did well at your job, that opportunities would present itself. You knew, you understood that theoretically if you went in among your peer group and made yourself relevant, that advancement opportunities would be there. There'd be opportunities for that. Today's student, I don't see that as much. We've changed that thought process to literally explaining now your career advancement opportunities. I think maybe the attention spans or the need to have it now sort of thought process is prevalent among today's student, and we don't have the opportunity to allow that person to kind of feel themselves out in that position and figure out that, hey, if I make myself stand out against everybody else, I'll get that opportunity advancement. We don't have that sort of time. We'll lose that person pretty quickly. So our onboarding process, even in some of our entry-level jobs, we explain what the next opportunity will be within our dealership. If you start here and make yourself known, then you'll be here, and then there's an opportunity for here. And that's something that we've had to change. We've had to look within ourselves to try and figure out why our turnover ratios are what they are. And they're still too high for what I want, but the area has a lot of transient folks coming in and out of the area. So a lot of people love the idea of the beach till they get down here and figure out it's the beach. It's only the beach 4 months out of the year. A couple other thoughts too, and I apologize for skipping around. The subject matter that you're trying to tackle today was actually Dr. John Hutchins' commencement address this year for Coastal's graduating summer class. And he urged those students, those graduates, to put their phone down and make communication, to make social contact without a phone, to let go of their devices, to figure out how to communicate amongst themselves and their peer group and potential employers. And unfortunately, that's a skill set it's evaporating quickly, quite honestly. With a lot of our new hires, we find that they have a tougher time, past the second or third sentence. It's tough on them to keep the conversation. And I know that's a big topic. I know that's a challenge. And it may be the way society's changing. We may have to figure out how to change with it a little bit. Toyota spends a tremendous amount of money on trying to figure out how to sell millennials. We spend a tremendous amount of money trying to figure out how to hire millennials and keep millennials. And it's a very prevalent subject. But like I said, the task is large. But I applaud the fact that you're taking the opportunity to try and figure out ways around it and attack it bit by bit.
With HTC, our competition is pretty stiff right now, so what we pride ourselves on is certainly our customer service and our community involvement. So with that being said, we're looking for someone when they come into the door, and this should work for anyone, any company. I would encourage you to share with your students before they apply for a position, before they go and interview for that position, to be certain that they have researched that company. Internet provides a lot of information, and they're familiar with that, and it's at their fingertips. So certainly be knowledgeable of the company and the industry. That is such a turnoff when you have a student, or not even a student, an adult, to come in, applying for a position, and they can't tell you anything about the company that you represent. So that's something that I would strongly encourage the students to be knowledgeable of the industry and the company they're applying for. Because of our need for employees who are passionate about the community involvement piece and provide quality customer service, one of the key things that we look for is something that cannot be taught. We cannot train you, and this is something that we push very strongly, is that we find employees that are of sound character. That's our key thing that we look for. We want someone that's going to do the right thing when no one's looking. So that's something that when we do reference checks on employees, and we spend a lot of time talking to people throughout the community. We'll reach out to teachers, we'll reach out to coaches, because we want to know more about the character of that individual. We can teach the skills, but we cannot teach them to be good people, and that's what we emphasize. So that's one thing that, as a teacher, I would try to encourage our students to do a good job wherever they are, on the field, in the classroom, and just do the right things. Also, we would also strongly encourage any position that they have held to include that on their resume. Oftentimes students will not include part-time jobs, and they're just starting out trying to find a position, and oftentimes they have not held very many positions. But it's helpful to just list those, even if it's babysitting, whatever it is. It may seem minimal to them, but put it on the resume. Any skill sets that would apply, and just show that they have some work ethic and some background and drive to work. I would be sure to include those part-time jobs on the resumes.
Yeah, I would definitely agree about sharing the part-time jobs and any work experience, even if it's volunteer experience. We want to see when we hire, and as I said, this summer I led our summer intern program, which was 80 students. And this was a mixture of college and high school students. So we had summer service workers and lifeguards. We also had engineering students there. So finance and accounting, it was quite an array of students and backgrounds. So we love to see when they're interviewing engagement. We really want to see that they're interested. So we really like to know that they're going to come to us, they're asking questions. They want to know, is this position a fit for me? So many students seem to come in with the idea that it's about us just sort of finding out more about them. And really, we want to know if this is a fit for them. It should be kind of a two-way street. So we definitely want to know if they're going to be the right person or candidate for the position. But something that has come to my mind that our HR team just talked about within the last few weeks has been something that would be very beneficial, I think, as teachers, is we love to see the teamwork. St. Cooper is very cross-functional. We do a lot from one department to another and a lot of teamwork. So definitely for us to see that these students can work together collaboratively. So projects in the classroom, things that would kind of feed into those experiences and build those skills would be beneficial. Also, presentation skills, for them to be able to present. A lot of our summer interns actually did some presentations. Are you guys familiar with CI, Continuous Improvement, as a program? We actually had some of our summer interns sitting on continuous improvement teams, and they were contributing, they were giving input, they were building PowerPoint slides. So any type of activity, business writing, or any of these skills that really are going to feed into that teamwork and presentation, presenting themselves, public speaking, any of those skills that would be beneficial to an employer are helpful.
Any other advice you guys want to share and what teachers should be actually telling their students, informing their students before they actually go out and start? I know researching is a great component of presentation skills, writing skills. Is there anything else before we take some questions from our teachers? Okay, questions? All right, this is your opportunity. Okay.
We all talk about soft skills. Engineering classes take time to do soft skills. We all deal with that. Two of the things we struggle with in the school, dress code and phone etiquette. How do y'all deal with that at your places? Personal telephones and dress.
Honestly, to speak for us, so many of us have corporate telephones. You don't really look at somebody using their phone and iPads in a meeting. We are all using an iPad and a cell phone, so it doesn't look like we're using it for personal use. It's a little bit different for us and more difficult to draw the line between somebody sitting over there making plans for their weekend and doing business work. But I don't see an abuse of it, personally speaking, where I am and the folks that I'm working with in the company. We have seen it. I do a lot of college recruiting, and we actually had a student this spring that came up. She was the next in line, and she was there to talk about an engineering co-op position, and she stopped and answered a call right when she got up to the table. And we just said, wow, how do we deal with that one? That surprised me a little bit to be that extreme with it. However, we just took the next person in line and just told her we would speak to her when she was ready to make us a priority. So I don't see a tremendous problem with it. Sorry.
Anybody else want to share on that particular question? Dress code. Dress code? Okay.
Thank you. That's a struggle for us. I know that a lot of students that I come across, that's one of the things I try to explain. There's a time and a place where we just conducted 37 scholarship interviews and 35 of our applicants were dressed appropriately, and we had two, what I've heard, very good nurses show up in jeans for interviews. And an interview is an interview is an interview, whether it's McDonald's or whether it's McLeod. Professional dress is something that is expected, and I do think somewhere along the continuum we've lost that communication with students. I'm not saying it's teachers, but I think that things are changing. So making sure that students and people understand that professionalism is professionalism. It's always appropriate in an interview type of setting. And as far as our campuses are concerned, from a technology standpoint, I think it's something that we're going to have to embrace. You're right, there are iPads being used for everything. We use our cell phones for everything, but there's a time and a place for it. Facebook may not be something that you should be looking at while we've got surgery going on and you are an MST, med surge technician. So just explaining that there's a time and a place for everything, you know, everything is appropriate in its own place, basically, is something that I personally try to explain, because I have 2 teenage daughters. Yeah. So once we get past the fact that they know everything, and you know, I'm old school and things are different now, help them understand that communication is what it is. Some things are just very consistent. So professionalism is important. Keeping everything in its own place is what I try to stress.
You know, we try to pick our battles. And I know that may sound like a compromise or like we're bending ourselves to, trying to maybe placate employees somewhat, but part of our business now is done on phones. So we have access to our customer relations database. Everything's done on phones now. So my employees work through their phones, at least on the sales side and service side. So again, to try and pick apart what's Facebook and what's work is, you know, that can be tough. I would say this in terms of trying to pick the battle. We went to a training at one point in time where they made us put our phones in a basket and took the basket out of sight. And you talk about people that were nervous as they could possibly be. And imagine that. So, you know, if y'all entered into this room and Mary Beth said, hey, listen, give me your phones, we're gonna put them in a basket, they're gonna be safe, they're gonna be someplace over here. And you're gonna sit there for 3 or 4 hours. How many of you would be happy with that? So you got 10% of the room that would be happy with that. But again, going back to picking our battles, we kind of look at it and say, listen, you know, is it a problem? You know, you lose work hours. There's no doubt about it. I mean, productivity is going down. They still get paid the same amount. They're still there for 40 hours or whatever it may be based on their pay scale. But am I losing hours on it? I'm absolutely losing hours. You know, again, one of those things that we try and pick our battles. Dress code, you know, we're set, we're uniforms for the most part, so we don't battle as much with that. You know, I would urge you, as you talk to your students about a lot of these things, in my mind, they seem to kind of cross over with home skills as well. You know, parents supporting you in the things that you're trying to do in the classroom, and I understand that sometimes doesn't always happen, but, you know, proper dress and those sort of things to me sort of come from home. And then you're able to say, hey, listen, you know, when you go to an interview, you step it up a notch. And you need to be there, you need to be clear and present and make sure that the person conducting the interview knows that you're interested in this position. But it may not be helpful, but we try and compromise a little.
In regards to abuse of the telephone usage, yeah, I think it's key that companies have accountability for productivity. So, you know, that's one thing. We're going to be looking at your productivity. And in our industry, we have a lot of call centers and a lot of stats. So if you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing and on the phone and you're distracted by cell phone usage or internet usage as well, it's going to show up in your numbers. So I mean, that's important to us as a company, is to try to have measures in place so that we can eliminate any abuse usage as far as internet or telephone usage. As far as dress, you know, I agree. I mean, we have probably some of the most conservative dress policies probably within the county at Horry Telephone. But with interviews, applicants coming in for interviews, you know, we really do need to stress to our students that we need to pick it up in that area to be more conservative there. That is an area that we definitely need to improve.
Guys, if you don't mind coming down, because Tracy
I'll repeat the question.
Okay.
Come on, right here, Adrian. Rick. Rick, loud enough. You can hear it, repeat.
Okay.
The question is, how much do y'all look at electronic data from the students, like projects? Y'all talk about projects. Y'all actually want to see an electronic portfolio when you are interviewing?
So the question is, looking at student portfolio, is that some of the evidence that they want to see
Right.
these students bring when they're interviewing?
Right.
Okay.
in a healthcare environment, that may not be something that we are going to look at as much as some of the other industries, but something interesting that we just had go on this summer. We did a pilot where we were trying to figure out how we could make our surgical services team more efficient. So we actually invited in 9 of my former students that were fresh high school graduates that were on their way to college their freshman year. And because they were not tainted, because they had not done anything in the hospital, they were fresh, they were intelligent, they just looked at things and they simply said, well, why not try this instead of that? We noticed that these students actually helped us to increase our efficiency from a surgical services standpoint. So we actually forced them to think on the fly in that time and in that space. So it may not be about projects, but actually the free thinking, actually the thinking on the spot is something that we encourage from them, and that may be the closest that we get to actually looking at things from a school standpoint, if that makes any sense.
You know, your question brought up an interesting point, and we don't do that as much as I think to what your question specifically poses, but it did start me thinking about it a different path on that, which was what your students are posting, you know, online through their social media aspect. So I would encourage you to let your student applicants know that you know, when you come in and you do apply, we're going to use our social media opportunities to kind of go back and figure out what type of person you are, what are you posting, what are you doing online, and it does have an impact. You know, we've obviously made decisions based on what people feel like is appropriate to put on their social media sites that we don't feel is appropriate as an employee of our dealership. So I know that's a little bit off topic, but it does happen.
As far as bringing any type of examples of their work, I think it's dependent upon what position they're applying for. And certainly anything that's related would be helpful and would be encouraging. It's definitely sets a good impression. So I would encourage them to bring any type of related material.
I would certainly second that and just say that, yes, examples, portfolios, samples that they can bring in for the hiring manager of their work are wonderful. I think you specifically asked about an electronic submission as well. I believe we had a couple of our interns do that. One of them that comes to mind was our graphic communications intern that wanted to submit some work they had done through school, college coursework. So that was a great example for them to bring in and provide for the supervisor that was hiring, just so they could say, hey, here are some of the programs I've used. I've used InDesign, I've used just some different things, and they were able to showcase what they could do. So that certainly gave them a leg up and an advantage over somebody who just came in and said, hey, yeah, I've done this. So definitely it was a very real example.
Got one here.
Okay.
What are some basic technical skills they look for?
Basic technical skills. Office skills, sorry, okay.
Okay, I can say for us specifically, Excel. Definitely Excel. Microsoft Word, yes, PowerPoint, those are valuable skills. Also, going a little above and beyond, I just recently, I'm not sure if you guys, or some of you should be familiar with the Power Associates program from Santee Cooper. Raise your hand if you're familiar with it. Scholarship program. So with that program, and I'm happy to talk to you guys about their scholarships that we provide. We had 8 of them available this year, and we're paying for an occupational technology degree through or Georgetown Tech, basically, or through Trident Technical College. But saying that, we okay? Okay.
Yeah.
So work keys testing is going to be critical to that. We have certain tests that are required. So some of those are very difficult to prepare for. You know, you have reading for information. Okay, you can practice that. There are some exercises out there through ACT and review. But observation skills, you can't really practice it, but it's critical. If they don't meet the minimum score that we require, they're not eligible for the scholarship. So there are some skills depending on the program they go into with us. They have to take 4 different work keys tests. So those are some other things that we're looking for.
And I'm glad you mentioned work keys testing. All of our juniors in Orange County schools, well, I think in the whole state of South Carolina, they are required to take work keys testing.
Do they take specific tests, or do they do the readiness?
They do the math, the locating information, and the reading for content.
Okay, and that's three of them that we require. So that's great. They have to do teamwork if they're applying for our line workers scholarship, and then the observation skills as well, which is going away. Observation skills will not be available after, I believe, the end of this year.
And that's good to know for our students, because I think some of our students don't take work testing as seriously as they do the other tests that we have.
We have another? Yeah. Here? Okay, we have another one back here.
In regards to interviews and dress code, do you guys have the students practice using proper English? I know, like, in my classroom, I'm a very big stickler for proper English, proper sentence structure, rather than using slang and shorthand or text within the workplace.
Okay, I'll briefly address that. I promise I'll give the microphone away so somebody else can speak to it. Since I led the intern development program through Santee Cooper this summer, we actually did intern development and had 3 different sessions with the interns, and we did mock interviews with them. So that was an opportunity for us to correct dress code issues and say, you know, what you're wearing might not be best. We actually had a form that we submitted to the students and said, here's how you did. Here are some things you can work on. Here's some positive feedback and constructive criticism, things we think you did that were phenomenal. So that certainly was incorporated in that. We did some public speaking with them. We just did several exercises with our interns over the summer for that very purpose, and definitely addressed grammar and structure. They're doing corporate email, sending emails out. Some of them were working in public relations. They were working with major companies and suppliers, and we certainly wanted them to represent the company well, so it was in our best interest to correct them and kind of encourage them along. It's very much a teaching process for us as interns.
Now, on a different note, in regards to interviewing applicants with grammar skills, depending upon the position, we do also implement some testing throughout the interview process, which will test their skills. As far as our grammar skills, we do typing assessments as well. So that is important, and even more so important for certain positions.
We may be similar in the fact, depending upon who we're trying to hire and for what department we're trying to hire for. If we've got 8 folks in our accounting department, we've got 28 salespeople. My service department's got 50 plus people in it. So depending upon the area that you're trying to hire into, the interview is set up a little bit differently. Now, my sales interviews are handled individually, and then a written portion of that is simply so we can assess your communication skills, your written and verbal communication skills. So we'll actually, just the sales manager at the end would say, hey, listen, give me a few minutes and tell me, write out your background. I've got what you've got on your resume, but write your background. Tell me why you want to, tell me why you're in Myrtle Beach if you're not from Myrtle Beach, and give me some of your history on that. And as soon as you do that, then we hand it to another sales manager who then goes and conducts his separate interview. But the whole goal of that is just to figure out, written and verbal skills. Part of that interview is just to make sure that you can communicate properly with what we're trying to put in front of our customer. Service side is completely different, and I would say this: we do some stuff with Carolina Forest High School, their occupational work program, and last couple of years we've hosted 4 or 5 students per semester. And the young ladies would come in and help us with clerical things. They'd come in for a couple hours each day. The gentleman would come in and either be involved in my service or parts departments, depending upon how many we had. But I would tell you this: I think those things are invaluable to students. The students are getting in the workplace early. They're finding out what sort of skill sets may need to be involved for their next step once they graduate school. In a lot of those, encourage you guys, if there are opportunities like that for student placement, even if it's only a couple hours a day, those things will help you place students a lot easier. And then I think the feedback that you get from those students and coming back into the school, I think would be valuable as well.
Communication is definitely very important. I'm fortunate enough to be able to see both sides. I work on the student side of it, and then I get to see the adult side of it, the folks that are actually looking for jobs and looking for positions at our hospital. And it really depends on what positions you're interested in. We have a registration department where they are customer facing. They are seeing customers all day, every day, and their communication skills are very important. It may not be as important for an employee that never sees customers. Maybe there's a person that works in a back office that never has to deal with customers up front. Now, of course, we want their communication skills to be good enough where they have to reach out to patients or reach out to families, that they can do that with no problem. But it depends on what area at our hospital that you're working in. And one point I wanted to make is even some of our upper level students, the course that I get a chance to teach is called Health Careers. And my students are honor students. My students are 4.5s to 5.0s. These are, to me, the best of the best. And what I've noticed is that when I require papers to be written, kids forget sometimes, and they will write a paper like they're sending a text to a friend. And that gives me a chance really to focus on the fact that there's a time and a place for everything. If you're sending me a text message, that's one thing if you're talking to a friend. But if you're writing a formal paper, you always have to be on your P's and Q's and making sure you're doing the right thing from a communication standpoint. So I think even the best students sometimes will lose a little bit of that here and there, and focusing on the fact that communication is important, especially when it's written communication, is something that I think we definitely have to do a better job of.
Good morning. I am very interested in what industry certifications you all use in your individual industries. And I understand with medical, you would have some licensure where you can touch a person and all that. That's understandable. But for the other three of you, what industry certifications are nationally recognized that because we as a district, in the state, are looking at industry certifications for all of our career major programs. And so I would like to know what you use. And I'm glad you mentioned work keys, because we sometimes question, but Santee Cooper, we knew used work keys, but does anybody else use work keys? And what other certifications you would expect a potential employee to have? Because we're probably going to be talking about that later.
So the national certifications is something that we're focusing on.
That means something.
Certification, and also if anybody else uses work keys as well.
You know, that's probably a question better addressed by the ladies to my right. Just very briefly with us, it's we onboard you and then we train you as you go. In other words, if you're going to start out as an apprentice technician, then we've got ASC certified classes that you're going to take as you grow within yourself and the business itself. Same thing on the sales side. You're required to test out through Toyota based on product knowledge and those sort of things. So ours kind of happens as you're there.
We have some positions that do require certifications, some of those being IT type positions that may require certain type of certification. Construction positions, we do ask that students have either their CDL permit or their license. But most of our positions we're training once they are on board with us. But there are a few that will require, most of those are IT related.
I would say that we're very similar in the fact that a CDL is another certification. We do train, so it's not going to be required, but for example, for a Line Tech C, which is the entry-level Line Tech position coming in, we actually keep a spreadsheet, and we're going to have different tabs on that spreadsheet that show which candidates that are applying have their line worker certificate already from the technical college. Do they have a CDL? And of course, when you have more boxes checked, you're a more likely hire. We are willing to train, but of course, if we can bring somebody in that's already met those requirements, it may have a leg up on the candidates that do not. Other certification at the high school level is not coming to mind for me right now outside of the work keys. But we do always look at if you are guiding students toward an engineering track, which we have a tremendous number of engineers, mostly electrical engineering, mechanical, and civil. It's very important that they're at an ABET accredited school, which is true of IT as well. And you would be surprised at the number of students that are not counseled in the fact that this school is not ABET accredited, but this one is. And so they need to be aware if they're going up an engineering track, which schools they can and should be looking at for employability.
In regards to the CDL piece I mentioned earlier, and I think this goes back to the character that we're looking for in students and initiative and drive. You know, we do ask that the applicants have at least their CDL permit. And as we go through the interview process, we will tell the applicants as we're interviewing them, they do not have their permit or license. This is something you really need to get. It gives you an advantage over other applicants. So therefore, if you get it within the next couple of days, you know, it's just a matter of going down, studying, going down to the DMV office and taking the first portion of the test. We'll work with you to get your license for the driving portion, but if you'll at least get the permit, that will give you an advantage. You give us a call, we'll update your application. And it is surprising at the number of students who do not take that advice. So that is something we're not as much looking for, whether or not they have a CDL permit. We're looking at what type of initiative that student has, and that shows us a lack of initiative. After we have specifically addressed that this is going to give you an edge, please let us know if you've received it. So that's something as a teacher I would strongly encourage students.
Can you give us maybe a ballpark figure of what kind of investment you're making in an entry-level position, just so we can pass that information? Like what does it cost you to hire, train, and get somebody up and running in an entry-level position?
Okay, so the training costs for a person that's just started with your, with your company, and I know it probably depends on
It's
the
going to vary depending
position.
upon the position. It's really difficult. Someone else may, I would say it was a varied position.
I will tell you this, that Toyota studied this, and I actually attended a meeting about a year ago. They call it turnover. Not turnover, but turnover, because we're continually going through people, and they associated somewhere between $18,000 and $19,000 per person. You think about all the things that we're going to do with drug testing and background testing and all those things, and you've got several employees trying to help this person on board. Time that they're giving that person, not to mention the clerical portion of that, HR, those sort of things, and then we train, guaranteed money for X amount of time depending upon the position, and then a 90-day review and those sort of things, and their number is somewhere on an average between 18 and 19.
Thank you.
But turnover is something that we oftentimes talk about as well, and we actually looked at some numbers, and we did a calculation. We figured out that it takes about whatever that person's salary is that's leaving our organization, it takes about 1.5 times that person's salary to bring somebody else on, to onboard them, to get them prepared to go in and do that job. So it ends up being very, very expensive for us to continue to replace people, and there's just some positions that have high turnover, but we make out much better as an employer, as an organization, if we're able to keep the employees that we worked hard to get and to train, keeping them on site or keeping them in our organization.
Thank you.
Are you able to conduct exit interviews to figure out why the people are leaving you?
That's
Why
something-
while all of you are having the high turnover rate?
That's something that we definitely try to do. Now, you do run into certain obstacles a lot of times. Sometimes people leave organizations and it's peaceful. Those people will definitely be happy to interview and happy to tell you about what they liked, what they didn't like, what we could do better as an organization. But a lot of times when you find that people are unhappy in an organization, they just want to be away from that organization. So trying to put together an exit interview ends up being a little difficult in a lot of instances.
Do your research or anything, word of mouth?
Well, it's hard to trust word of mouth because you get disgruntled individuals that are not going to be happy no matter where they are. I feel like with a system as big as McLeod, 8,000 employees don't get it wrong. So it's hard to focus on the 25 employees that are going to give negative information versus the 8,000 that come to work every day and are extremely happy. That ends up being tough. I'm sure there's some part of our organization that is actually doing research on that. We have an operational and effectiveness department in Florence, but I'm not up to date on their current statistics or what they're able to research right now.
Briefly, perfect world, you get an exit interview. Unfortunately, we don't always get that. To your point about keeping stats, we track who leaves my business and goes into the same business someplace else. To me, that's the more important stat. Now, that person leaves me and wants to go get into real estate. I get it. Sales is sales. And they're very simply looking at it and saying, hey, this was a stepping stone. And I understand that. We don't ever look at it and say, hey, the grass isn't greener. I don't know whether it is or isn't for you. But, what we'll track is if I lose a technician to another local store. And those sort of things. So, we try and look at our attrition rate as somebody who's leaving me, working with the same industry within the same town. And we try and focus on those simple things. And that could be a pay scale, it could be a bad fit, it could be, I disagree with the way that management the direction that my department's going in, those sort of things. But, the main focus of that is I just want to make sure that I'm not losing people that we brought on board and spent time, money, trained, those sort of things to someplace else because there's an internal problem there that we didn't know about. If somebody, again, wants to go and get in real estate, I understand and I hope it works.
We have an electronic survey that we send to each of our employees when they resign from the company. We have them to complete that, and then we have a meeting scheduled for each employee in which we have an HR representative that will cover that survey and then ask additional questions and have conversations. So, and then that feedback is sent to management to provide some insight as to why they're leaving the company, whether it be for pay, whether it be for communication issues, lack of growth, whatever it may be. And then, of course, some employees are not comfortable with providing that information, even though it's confidential. They're not comfortable with providing it. But in addition to that, we also conduct morale surveys throughout the company periodically to provide us with insight as well as to any issues that may need to be addressed. And 360 management reviews.
And we actually have a very similar process with our electronic exit surveys. So we do those. Honestly, to be completely transparent, I think there are people that leave that maybe aren't happy with their position because maybe they weren't a good fit. They don't always see that they weren't a good fit. But I think that does happen. And I think also a couple of instances, just because I'm in HR and hear stories, from other employees that sometimes people leave, but they're not going to complain or say anything negative because they just want to leave that door open. So, they may want to return, they may want to come back in another role. I don't feel like we always get a very accurate picture from our exit survey, unless it's something like, a better salary somewhere else, or maybe benefits, or a better location for them. Maybe they were driving an hour to come to us and they found something within 20 minutes of home. So little things like that.
Okay, last question. In terms of like your salaries and your hiring employees, like us as state employees, we're kind of just, it is what it is. There's no transparency. You've got this many years in this education. Do you guys compensate employees like for additional certifications or additional experience, or is it kind of flat in terms of how many years versus what a job you're applying?
Well, I can speak, of course, as Santee Cooper, as another state agency. We do have the pay scale. However, it's a range. So the manager, the supervisor can bring you in wherever they see fit on that scale. For example, a master's degree is not required for a position, but it may be preferred. And we use a system that just says, okay, that gives you about 1 more year of experience. So we kind of equate that with the year of experience. So that is how that would help you. But we definitely have a defined range, and you must fall within that range.
Our pay structure is very similar. We will equate any type of education to experience. We do try to follow some standards because it's very important to us. Not only, it's important to us that we look at internal equity as well. So if we're hiring a programmer coming in the door with 2 years experience, we want to make certain that we do not have anyone internally who has more experience and are being paid at a lower rate. So, there's a lot that we look at, and we try to maintain that internal equity because it's very important to us. And sometimes, we're maybe a little bit more conservative on the front end, bringing someone in, because it's important to us to see what they are doing. So we may set up some goals where we may bring an employee in at a lower range or a lower salary, and then do a 6-month follow-up. That gives us the opportunity to see really what they can provide to us and how much of an impact they have for us, and then we'll give an adjustment at that point. So that we have found to be very beneficial.
Ours is set up from a sales standpoint. Sales is what sales is. You become, your raise becomes effective when you do, sort of thing. But that's the variable side of the business. The service side of the business is all about accreditations. How many years, how many levels of ASE certified technicians, We have master technicians, and obviously if a master technician moves in there, which we see quite often, we'll have somebody with 20 years experience moving in from Pittsburgh or New York or whatever because they're tired of the weather and they bought a house and they want to retire here. So we get a lot of master techs that'll move in, and those are obviously the higher paid skill levels, and then they're paid accordingly, depending upon what the going rate is at that point in time. But generally, the highest rate that we're going to have in store in terms of technicians. Other levels, general sales managers, controllers, people like that within the store that's simply based on experience, and that's more of a feel thing based on what the industry is providing. I will tell you this, that our line is one of the higher volume lines, and therefore we tend to pay more for those folks when they come. The good news is we don't generally replace them very often, but because of the volume that we see and because of the manufacturer that we work with, we tend to pay on that higher pay scale towards those positions.
Compensation is definitely a balancing act. We look at experience. We also look at internal equity. So pretty much all of our positions are graded. There's a minimum pay for the position. There's a maximum pay. There's a maximum hire. We have a lot of different things that we look at. So we try to stay within some sort of range. Now, I will say that you can have an exception to policy from time to time. If there's an extremely high performer that we're trying to recruit in our organization, then sometimes we'll have to make the adjustments to get that individual into our organization. But for the most part, our positions are great, and we have a standard that we'll go by to make sure we work out that compensation. That's fair to our employees as well as the incoming employees.
Mary Beth, may I ask one more question?
We're ready to close on time, guys. I am so sorry. Maybe afterwards, if you don't mind. I'm sorry. I told them at 9:30 and I want to honor their time. Thank you on behalf of all of us for spending this time with us this evening. Some valuable wisdom, words of wisdom for us as teachers and for our students. I have the pleasure of being in every one of your business and industry, and you can walk into McLeod, Sparks Toyota, Santee Cooper, or a telephone, and you can feel that everybody that works there are so happy to be there. And we also appreciate, because all of you give back to education, and we really appreciate that. Thank you again for taking this time, and we really appreciate it.
Thank you once again. It's real good to hear from business and industry and see the support that you have, not only for us as educators, for our kids as well. We appreciate it.